Like to call to order Dauphin County Board of Commissioners 2026 budget hearings for Monday, November 10th. I want to begin by allowing our Chief Clerk Haggerty to spend some time just as he did in the last budget hearing we had. He'll do to kind of convene all budget hearings. Just a quick little overview of some of what we're up against going into this budget cycle.
Good morning, Commissioners. I won't go into quite as much detail as I did during our first round of hearings. For folks who are interested in that, I believe the live streams are available online, so folks can kind of go back deeper into that. But in short, um, you know, appreciate the opportunity to gather here today for our second round of hearings. Dauphin County is facing some significant financial challenges moving forward. Um, on the screen here is a high-level summary of revenue and expenses dating back to 2019, and you can see that over time, for a variety of reasons, we are now in a position where our current year's budget looks like we are estimating to have a $15.7 million deficit and end the year with just $13.6 million in the general fund remaining. Based on departmental requests for next year, we are projecting an additional $28 million deficit in 2026, $37 million deficit in 2027, and $43 million deficit in 2028. Now, of course, with only $13 million remaining in the general fund, if we actually adopted a budget with a $28 million deficit, we would run out of cash for general fund operating purposes in April or May. So a lot of hard decisions and difficult discussions to be had between now and the end of the year when the county's budget is due. But that's why we have these meetings to identify ways to save money and identify ways to bring in additional revenue. So appreciate everyone joining us today.
Thank you, Mr. Haggerty. With that, our first to kick off today is Community and Economic Development, Director Connor, and I'll have Chris give us kind of an overview before we hear from the director.
So for 2025 estimates, revenue, we're expecting to be right on budget. Expenses are projected to be $30,835 under budget, or 1.18%. For next year, their revenue request is up $70,000 over 25, and their expense request is up $131,000 or 5.03%. They did request 3 different merit increases for the director, deputy director, and grant manager. And they did ask for the grant manager, if approved, to be retro back to 8/1 of 25. The total for those with payroll and FICA taxes would be $79,434. The salary increases that they requested are above or based on a wage study the department had done of surrounding EDCs in contiguous counties, and the results showed the staff salaries were lower than the average for their comparable positions. The donations show an increase in their request from 25 due to the work for the gaming program administered by their office that was previously handled by consultants that they have moved in-house. The outreach and community engagement position was moved to this department for 2026, and a program coordinator position was added throughout the year, which is resulting in the increase in salary and benefit lines. The outreach and community engagement position is still 50% reimbursed through human services. And I'm sorry, we're on tab 16. The workforce development coordinator is to be abolished as part of the budget request with an approximate savings of $84,808 in salary costs, plus you'd have the associated benefits.
Director Connor, welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
I just wanted to do a little quick overview of our office of what we've done in 2024 and 2025. Our local share municipal grant program update. 2024, we created over 2,959 jobs. An additional investment in leverage dollars is $78,556.80 895. In 2025, jobs created from the program were 4,349 jobs, and additional investment leverage dollars, 37,764,000. We received over 500 applications in those 2 years and awarded 378, 53 million worth of requests, and we awarded over $19 million in application. Tourism program. In 2024, we had over 140 applications submitted. We awarded about 110 applications. In 2025, we had 174 applications submitted. We awarded over 140 applications. In 2024, 14 million worth of requests from that program. We were awarded about $2.7 million, and in 2025, 7.8 million worth of requests. We awarded over $3.4 million. Our Community Development Block Grant Program and Home Investment Partnership Program in 2024, we received about approximately 227 jobs created from that program out of our Public Infrastructure and Public Service program. And in 2025, 152 jobs were created from that program. Over $10 million was leveraged from the program in 2024, and about 2.6 million leveraged from the program in 2025. Our whole home repairs program, we've completed 17 out of 40 projects, residential homes. We have 23 residential homes left to do in the program. In the 2026 program year, we should complete that. So I won't go over all the other programs. I just wanted to list them. We also administer the DCIBG, the TSIP program, Small Business Loan Program, a Land Bank Demo Fund, Affordable Housing Grant Program. We also do municipal bond financing. We are a pass-through for the RACP program, Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program. We're administering about 20 of those, over $20 million. Our Home Investment Partnership Program, our Home American Rescue Program, the Home ARPA. We also have a First-Time Homebuyers Program. We also assist with the state of the county, special events and partnerships with our Parks and Recs Department. We administer the Cultural Festival, Home Rehabilitation Program. We also have an EPA Brownsfield Phase 1, Phase 2 ESA assessments. We also do the Water Resource Enhancement Program as well with a partnership with the Tri-County Planning Commission. And our Redevelopment Authority also did a strategic plan partnership with Penn State Harrisburg. We also have a Dauphin County Rental Assistance Program. We assist low-income renters in the county. And we partnered with Comcast for a broadband program in northern Dauphin County. Just a little update on what we've done over 2024 and 2025 program.
Any questions of Mr. Connor?
I don't have any questions initially. I just want to make a statement here, and this department clearly is engaged in areas above and beyond other departments, and the amount of revenue that you're involved with, not just what's listed here as anticipated revenue, but revenue that you bring into the county for ancillary events and programs that you're involved with far exceed what's even listed here. So I want to say congratulations for the great work that you do. You're involved in so many different projects, and see, we have the land bank, we have the infrastructure bank, we have the new demolition bank that's only a couple years old. Work you do with HUD and the housing authority, the work you do with some of the projects in the city, the work you do with the Harrisburg Regional Chamber and CREDIC. So there's so much more takes place your department touches on a daily basis that's even contained in these documents here. So just put that before I ask any questions.
Appreciate the support. I want to thank my staff, Dan Robinson, Brooke Echeverria, Deb Laudenslager, Tim Brooks, and Mike Burke. Done a great job administering all these programs.
I guess my only concern, we've had this conversation before, but I think, some of the individuals who do our work outside of the office, just ensuring that we're continuing to monitor, the value, and that, some of those are flat funded, meaning like, every month you get a certain amount, and, we might go months without someone going through a program, and considering how we might restructure those contracts to a success-based fee, meaning you get someone through an application process, and you know, that's in essence where you get paid coming out, going through a process, instead of potentially getting to the end of a year where someone received close to a full-time salary for getting 10 people through an application process, where previously when they were hired to do that job, maybe they were getting, you know, 50 or 60 people through a process. So I think things like that, just continuing to monitor those kinds of things to ensure that we're getting, you know, the best bang for our buck we can every contract we have. But I think yeah, I have no questions other than that.
Thank you, Commissioner Douglas, for your oversight as well. Thank you.
So thank you for the job you and the staff continue to do, George. I know you've had some staff turnover. Tell me how the stability and capability of staff capability of staff is in light of that turnover.
Yes, we have a full complement of staff right now. We hired Mike Burke from the security department. He's done a great job with our whole home repairs program. And we also hired Tim Brooks to replace our financial coordinator position. And he's done a great job with that. Dan Robinson has been working with him and doing a great job with the bank accounts and making sure we get a full interest percentage on all of our accounts. So we've done a good job with that. And everyone else has been in place for over 10 years. Brooke Echeverria and Deborah Laudenslager have been in place for over 10 years, and everyone's doing a great job. So I appreciate all of their hard work every day.
So I know that, you know, there's a limited impact, almost there is no impact really on the general fund related to your budget. My question for you is, what ways could your office provide a positive influx of revenue in either a cost shift opportunity or a way to backfill revenues to ensure that we can capture some additional revenues outside of the office, or take care of functions internally to the office that otherwise are being funded by general fund revenues?
I've submitted a detailed recommendation plan to Mr. Haggerty back when he requested it from the directors meeting. So I have multiple different recommendations to assist the county with our grant programs to provide revenue to different county departments.
I saw you made a recommendation with the closure of the affordable, or the
First-time home
homebuyers program. Again, a lot of those things are, I think, efficiencies and ways to bring better operations, which I want you to encourage you to always do. You know, I mean, as those things are happening, we should always be looking for ways to do that. But I don't know, and I'd have to examine and talk to Mr. Haggerty about the actual areas where it could bring a net positive to the general fund revenues. And, you know, there's been talk of tourism monies going away, talk of other things. How would that impact your office?
It doesn't. We have a plan in place for if those funds are eliminated from the office.
As the federal or state impasses from CDBG to HUD, has anything impacted your office?
No, sir. The federal shutdown has not impacted the CDBG dollars and home dollars.
Anticipating what may happen in the upcoming years, I mean, you know, are you making plans, obviously, to administer based upon what the budget allocated amounts are?
Yeah, I mean, for the last 20 years, CDBG and home have been on the chopping block to be eliminated, so we're always prepared for that possible situation.
Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I know we've got significant, you know, the Recorder of Deeds provides for each recording revenues that go into Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Do you know what the balance of that account is?
It's a little over $2 million.
And are there any active sort of housing projects that are being sought through, being requested? You know, we're in a time where affordable housing is an issue. I think just having those dollars being in the bank may not be the best utilization for those dollars. To leverage them and to be able to think about housing projects, sort of what's on the horizon with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
We're consistently working with developers for affordable housing projects in Dauphin County. We send everything to oversight Commissioner Douglas for approval, and then it's placed on the agenda. So we've done about 3 or 4 projects in the last 4 or 5 months, I'd say. Recommendations from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board.
I saw the veterans ones, and I know that the lady who's been supportive, and that has been a partner of Dauphin County. But I've not seen any, sort of higher leveraged utilization of those revenues for, a number of the other projects that we're using. I just want to know what the plans are.
And that, as you know, the money typically is geared to first-time homebuyers, which are in short supply at the level of the cost of a home these days, based on our regulations. So I know in discussion, since they're not HUD required numbers, we're looking at recommending to the board where we up the price of a home to help first-time homebuyers, which are kind of limited. So the goal is not to keep $2 million in the bank, because unfortunately we can't use that to balance the budget. But in a good way, we have a budget as we look to raise the income levels that people can have, or the type of home they can have with that program. So
You're saying most aren't eligible based on the requirements of, like, if they're a first time home buyer who would want to participate in a program.
yeah, I
They
think
have to buy a home at such a low cost level because we haven't adjusted the numbers to
it's
reflect
not
the
that
current
we
market.
haven't adjusted it.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't adjusted it, but we had based them
Off
for
of-
years off of HUD, which
Yeah.
because this isn't HUD dollars, we don't have to. I believe the average price in Dauphin County of a home is $270,000. So this program doesn't work for the average price, even though they're a first-time home buyer. But
Yeah, the max price is 230. The board wants to raise it to about 350,000. So if you're a first-time home buyer's applicant, you could purchase a house up to $350,000, and then you get the $6,000 that you guys increased in 2024.
And just for the community to be aware of that program, upon the sale of that property, that money comes back to the county into the affordable
That's
housing trust
correct.
fund.
That's correct.
So it's in essence just a zero interest loan until the home sells, in a way to incentivize first time home buyers to participate in the program and to get that little.
That's
extra.
correct.
But first-time homebuyers is just one program that is allowed under the Affordable Housing Trust Fund utilization. I mean, we've done leveraging of those dollars for a whole host of, sort of affordable housing ventures, and that's. I simply want to know that I hear from everything from the city related to their affordable housing, from Capitol Heights to, I'm hearing that this Likens Hotel, which was, I know that now is being potentially taken over from a 501c3 arm of the Housing Authority. I'm just wondering, again, with all of these happening, with all the needs, first-time home buyer is an important piece to this, but obviously having those other partners and trying to utilize these dollars to get into the gap financing as construction costs continue to rise and other pieces to these projects are important, not just sitting in the bank.
I would say that from the mayor's list of awarded ARPA home projects, we've partnered with at least half of those projects.
With Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and we still have $2 million in the bank. So it'd be good just to see a list of proposed affordable housing projects in Dauphin County. Do we have a comprehensive list of those?
We can provide that to you, Commissioner
That'd be
Harvey.
helpful.
Thank you.
And then again, the biggest piece to me is to try to identify, go through what areas within your budget could possibly provide some level of revenue replacement opportunities for our general fund. And I think before at least I, as one commissioner, want to pass the budget, especially in this department, I'd like to take a look at those opportunities as you've presented them. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. Appreciate your support. Anything else? Thank you, Commissioner Priest, Commissioner Douglas. We appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thank you all, and thank your office for all the work you guys are doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Did you have more to say?
Yeah,
Apologies.
I made a statement and I said I'll have a question later. Looking at the new positions and merit increases, is that still existent? That's what you're asking for?
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna ask. Okay, so the director, you're asking for a merit increase of salary and benefits of $40,000 increase, and your new deputy director, who's been in that position for how? All right. Well, you're asking
Good
for
question.
him to get a $30,000 annual increase in the budget. I just think with everything going on with our budget crisis, I think that's a pretty outlandish request to be making of this board at this time.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have solid waste and recycling. Kelly McGonigal.
All right, it's going to be tab 17 in your binders, commissioners. For 2025, overall in revenue, we're expecting them to be under 292,000. In expenses, we're expecting them to be under 310,000.
I wasn't going to address it. No, for me.
Or
But my answer is to cut it out.
2026, we're looking, revenue is down 77,000 and expenses are down 71,000. There were no new positions or merit increases requested. They are asking for a new recycling truck that would be 2 new trucks that would be purchased as a 5-year lease with an annual cost of $240,000. The code for other services contains $2.16 million for 2026 to cover the ash disposal costs of the Harrisburg incinerator per the terms of the sales agreement with Luxwama or the Lancaster County Solid Waste Authority. This is a $160,000 increase from 2025. The reduction in contracted temp services is due to the change in the household hazardous waste program. This program went from curbside pickup, I believe on demand, to once a year. The reduction in advertising is due to the elimination of TV airtime. And if the 2 new vehicles above are approved, the vehicle repairs and maintenance could decrease from 90,000 to 40,000. And because this department is in a separate fund, I will call attention that their request from the general fund for 2025 is approximately 200,000 under budget for this year, but it is a $30,000 increase for next year in general fund dollars, even though overall the budget's decreasing.
What is the total general fund impact?
Total as requested for 26 is 3.1 million.
And that's 3.1 million of general fund dollars.
Mhm.
So just making sure. All right.
Yep, correct.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Tell us a little bit about your past year, the budget, and a little bit about what we're looking at this year.
The past year has been a bit challenging with the recycling markets. It's something we can't predict or have control over, the commodities market. So our revenue is falling a bit short. A few of our contracts for scrap and waste paper, they're behind on their revenue checks just by a few months. So they're still coming in, and I do anticipate getting closer, at least to the revenue side. We had our month-long free shredding event for the community in April, and collected 17 tons of paper. Our HHW program, which I came to the board back in August and presented with that. So that program is actually full. The current curbside program is full until the end of February and 26, and at that time, we're eliminating the contract for the curbside program. And other than that, the electronics recycling center has been very busy. The drop-off program is not profitable. I also believe provided information on that as well. I received quotes for 2 brand new trucks, so you can only run the trucks so long. We have 2 trucks that have 400 and some thousand miles on them, and so that's why I submitted the request to lease 2 new vehicles rather than purchase them at $357,000 each, which would be close to $1 million. And when we first started the program, there were state funds available for us to recoup a lot of these costs, and those funds have gone away. So, for example, the recycling implementation grant, when we first started the drop off program, there wasn't a cap on the amount that you could request. That's how we got 1.7 million for the recycling center itself. And similarly, I think it was over 2 million for their drop off program. But now it's capped at 200,000, and you can't even purchase a recycling truck for that amount because they're 350,000 or 360. So that's where we're at in our department, and I know that other counties throughout the state, my departments are facing similar issues as well.
I'm going to just share a little bit more about the fleet management aspect of this. On Wednesday, during your Board of Commissioners meeting, there will be an item on the agenda for a no-cost agreement with Enterprise Fleet Management to conduct a free analysis of our vehicle utilization here at the county. If you choose to approve that, I would anticipate that we will have some additional information about this situation, among others, for your consideration before you ultimately vote on a budget.
Thank you. Commissioner.
Yeah, are we going to do me leading, or
I don't know.
have
Who-
the
who-
oversight leading? How are we going?
Yeah, who would
Oh,
like
I'll
to go?
just-
Sorry, you can go first.
well,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, the 400,000 miles on those vehicles, that's a lot of miles, but those types of vehicles are built to last, which they have, and you've done, you keep a lot of routine maintenance on them. Your staff takes great care of them as well, so thank you for doing that. You had mentioned the grant money that we initially got, not just for the building, for equipment over the years, and unfortunately, that's like a dangling carrot. The money's there, of course we go after it, but then when those grant dollars run out, then it's on the general fund to pay for stuff. And it happens with positions, and not to pick on the district attorney's office and others in the past. Oh, let's get this position that's fully paid for by grant money, which only lasts for 1, 2, 3 years, and it's up. It's on it. So this is another example, but you're in multiple municipalities, in the lower end in Conewago, northern end Halifax. Your drop-off sites are run very efficiently and responsibly. They're always clean. I just drove by there last week on my way up north to our veterans breakfast, and your staff's there. The one Saturday I was up north visiting Bonnie Kent and folks at the Human Service Building, reading to kids, and I told you the staff was there. The place has been run very, very well, so great job.
Thanks.
My question is, how many counties actually run solid waste departments? I know there's a solid waste director is a requirement, 67 counties, but how many folks I know surrounding counties? And give us a little bit about the history. There used to be tipping fees that would provide the revenues for the administration of this office, but it sounds like the haulers won in that discussion with the state legislature, and those tipping fees are no longer a sustainable part of how we want to take care of both our environment and take care of recycling. And it's fallen again, just like most things have, to county government to foot the bill and without revenue sources. So could you give us a brief history?
Yes. So when I initially started back in the department in 2000, the county had just eliminated or abolished the solid waste intermunicipal, or the intermunicipal solid waste authority. I'm sorry, it's not intermunicipal. I don't remember what it was. It was DISWA, Dauphin County. Maybe it was Intermunicipal Solid Waste Authority. I wasn't too familiar with them, but at that time, I was transferred from economic development to the new solid waste department and became the county's recycling coordinator. And at that time, we had a plentiful revenue stream through a $4.90 tax that we had on every ton of trash. So we would generate millions of dollars a year just for our department, and we weren't dependent on the general fund whatsoever. Then that was overturned, like Commissioner Hartwick had mentioned. It was lobbied and the legislation was overturned, so the county's ability to tax waste was no longer an ability, and we lost our revenue stream. And that's when we had to, go to the general fund. And to answer the first part of your question, out of 67 counties, there are only 8 departments. And those departments, I'm not even sure if they operate any waste management programs at all. The majority of solid waste functions in the 67 counties are performed by solid waste authorities.
And obviously, there's a real interest that I have related to the environmental impacts of these things. You know, you eliminate recycling, you don't have an ability to do that. There are consequences, which I know this board has always been, in the position of saying that taxpayer investment from our perspective has grown, but we've stayed in the business over the course of time. I mean, we're facing perilous financial times, and quite frankly, there are limited options where there are other counties that have been uh, in advance seeing this coming down the road. This is something that we believed that investment was able to be made based upon these financial numbers. We're going to have to make some very difficult decisions, like other counties have, related to whether or not this is going to be a service that we're going to continue to provide, related to you know the loss of revenue. And again, it wasn't; it was overturned. I just want to make sure it's clear for the record. The trash haulers won the lobbying effort in order to eliminate local fees to sustain recycling efforts. So that has to be very clear. That's what paid for recycling efforts to this point. They no longer are on the hook for that. There is zero revenue coming into the county, so we are solely relying upon our general fund revenues to be able to sustain your operation. So, and I want to say this before it, like your group out there does a phenomenal job. Both in partnering with the city for illegal waste and dumping, to being committed to making sure that even going out. Most recently, you did it, I know, not only for somebody who's struggling through cancer, but you've served the community in ways that go above and beyond the call of duty. And we've got folks that are out there that are committed to public service. So I want to certainly thank them as we take a look at these difficult decisions. It's not a reflection on both the competence, capacity, and the heart of the people that are doing the job, and we are truly grateful for their service. So I know we're going to struggle and have some difficult conversations about the future, and I just want to thank you for the job you've done, and I'll also let you know that we take these things very, very seriously. So
I understand.
Yep.
And I also understand that over the years, I can thank the board for allowing us and the support for the drop off program, knowing that it is not a revenue fund source. So the revenue that it did generate goes back into just operating the program itself. So I greatly appreciate that.
I'll just say quickly, I echo everything Commissioner Hartwick said. I don't really need to get wordy about it, but I think, his historic knowledge of how we got here, I think is really important. But then on top of it, echo the sentiments of, your office and the professionalism. And ultimately, every time I've had a need from you, you've responded quickly and been very helpful. So just thank you so much for that. And thank you for the way you run your office.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And another challenge you've had over the last 5 years has been, in the past, we were generating revenue for certain items. Now, not only aren't we generating revenue, we're having to pay
Yes.
to have it done. So complete 360 degrees
That's
turn
correct.
a lot of these areas.
So I appreciate that very much. And we will be losing one of our employees at the end of the year. So somebody's retired. That's great.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Next up, we have Patty Seitz from the Clerk of Court's office.
This is going to be tab 18 in your binders. For 2025, we're estimating revenue 55,000 under budget. We're also estimating expenses slightly under 283,000. For 2026, the request for revenue is 55,000 less than 25, and expenses are requested at 88,717 over 25, or a 5.31% increase. There were no new positions, merit increases, or items requested. The reduction in funding other service is due to the Treasurer's Office no longer using Brinks as an armored car service. The reduction in revenue is due to additional items being filed that cannot be charged for, and an increase in the number of fees being waived by the courts, as their revenue is entirely dependent on filing fees and other things that come through that way. And as of 8/1/25, outstanding revenue due to the Clerk of Court's office is slightly under 7.1 million. Opportunities for collections exist using third-party vendors, should or choose in cooperation with the PJ.
Patty, welcome.
Good morning.
Just want to begin by thanking you for your efforts in the clerk of court's office, certainly to bring a level of stability and the work of you and your team to get things on track. Really appreciate it. All my meetings I've had with you have been incredibly helpful. You've been on task and very much pragmatic, and we got to get this done. Here's what we're looking at. So thank you for your efforts and your work, and thank you for the budget you've presented us today. I think the only question I have from a tactical budget is the third party vendors, like you mentioned, in that particular area seems interesting to me. Are we saying, just to be clear, that there's $7.1 million in unpaid fees that we could work with some type of collector to get either a portion or all of that back? Is that what's on the table potentially for us to consider?
Yes. I don't have any vendor names or quotes, but
No, not yet.
it is a possibility that
Sure.
could be pursued.
I think if the PJ is open to that, that's certainly something that I'm in favor of. So, anybody else?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank Ms. Nixon for being here, the new clerk of courts who gets to hear today's presentation. But I want to take a moment and thank you for the unbelievable work that you've done over the years here for the county. It did not go unnoticed by us or the 293,000 residents of the county. When you left that position, how quickly it spiraled downward, and the immediacy of the president judge reappointing you to that position, how quickly things stabilized. And that's due to your professionalism, leadership, your knowledge and skill set, and the team that you assembled around you. And I just want to say that in front of the new clerk of courts. Thank you as one commissioner for an incredible job done on behalf of the taxpayers of the county.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll echo the comments of my colleagues, but there are few people that I want to give more praise to than you. I mean, you're an example to others, not by what you say, but by your actions. You're what a public servant is and looks like. You're certainly somebody who, despite having other options and challenges and things that you could have made choices to do, you chose to take the harder road and do it without any kind of accolades, and do it in a way that allows both the people that are served by your office and the residents of this county to have a capable and effective leader that continues to process the important work of the clerk of court's office in a way that has brought stability, as was said. So thank you for all of your efforts, and we appreciate you and your staff and stepping up to the plate even when you didn't have to. I want to thank. I wish I had more budgets to look at like this. But both it lessens the impact on our general fund, and it also keeps a critical focus on internal operations. And from my understanding, things have been still challenging. This is not an easy administrative office, but it's one that continues to run efficiently and in ways that meets its legal obligations. I'd also like to welcome Tina Nixon to the room. I know that she is somebody I've got a great deal of confidence in. I know has been a leader in multiple areas, from both hospital systems to wide to helping folks, and she's a true public servant and a capable administrator. And I have a feeling that the office staff is going to continue to have the same level of support and hopefully guidance that are going to bring even more credibility to the office and cooperation. So anything you want to report to us from staffing perspective, any challenges or concerns that you see in the immediate future?
No, not really.
You got a true public servant. Well spoken. Thank you for your service. We
Thank you
really
so
appreciate
much.
you. Yep.
I also want to welcome Tina. Welcome, Tina. We're going to move on to the courts. Steve Liphart. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
First, before we get started, I'd just like to say on behalf of the President Judge that he has recognized since we had a meeting with the chief clerk, the seriousness of the situation that we encounter before us. To that end, you're well aware that we've taken some steps to immediately respond accordingly. The willingness to address this collectively remains, and to that end, we had sent basically a notice of the same over the chief clerk's office last week. We being, I was asked to send it on behalf of the president judge, but it's the president judge's intentions and desire to work as collaboratively as possible across not just court operations, but the other departments of the 12th Judicial District to reach as much of a state of assistance as we can without any impact to the administration of justice. So, having said that, if you have any questions of me before we begin, feel free. Otherwise, I would just say that the budgets that the court departments have submitted, and you probably have before you, certainly should not be construed as end-all be-alls. As you know, the president judge has signaled his willingness to, and has already begun a thorough examination of all those budgets. He has met with me and with them individually multiple times since October to ask them to make appropriate changes and identify those services and personnel that are required either by law, regulation, or for the administration of justice. So.
And I would just want to publicly say thank you to you and the president judge for working with us in good faith on the myriad budget challenges that we're facing. It's been extremely helpful. So thank you.
Certainly. Thank you.
And just quickly, I know we're live streamed, just from an educational standpoint, there is a clear separation of powers and authorities within the judiciary and the county administration. What our real role as commissioners within the administration is to set the budget. And the idea of having cooperation has been evident to me from the very start. I want to thank our president judge, Judge Evans, for being receptive to, suggestions and discussion that have ultimately allowed me to even express those potential ideas, but in a way that ultimately it's up to him to be able to act. And he's, in every conversation and every step, been a cooperative partner in trying to address these issues that the county faces unilaterally. So I know there's no compromise to the court operations, and we just want to say thank you. I know that we've got there's been great starts. I think there's other opportunities that may lie ahead. And I see also in here the suggestion of sort of an early retirement option, potentially, that is in his memo as well. That's something this board is going to also have to consider as we have those discussions. So something I'm just put out on the table. And I know it was a part of the memo that he had sent on November 3rd. Just as it relates to other potential options for saving. So thank you to the courts. Thank you to you, Steve, and look forward to continue to roll up our sleeves and try to identify those opportunities where they exist.
Certainly.
I echo everything you said. Thank you for being flexible with us. Obviously, it's helpful to have a partner who's aware of the circumstances. I also want to thank our chief clerk for kind of doing the work of making everyone aware and kind of sitting down and taking those meetings. But certainly thankful to the PJ and yourself for being open to, there's a lot of need in the county everywhere, right? As oversight of the prison, I see all the things we need, but I also recognize we're bound by, the constraints of this budget. And I'm also aware the courts have a lot of needs, and there's a lot of things that, are going to have to be delayed by working with us in this. And so we really appreciate the flexibility and your leadership as well. The court's been incredibly helpful, even over the last year. Many times when I've had to reach out to you about anything court related, you're quick to get me or my staff a response. And typically it's even more information than we asked for, and it's super helpful. So thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All three of us are making comments initially. I want to thank you, Steve, for the great work you're doing. You have the unique skill set and position of having served over here as the chief of staff prior to your new role. It gives you an opportunity to understand the working relationships and maneuver things more efficiently than maybe some would. And I appreciate that. Seeing the information we have in front of us and the presentation today shows that you get it, President Judge gets it. We can find a happy medium moving forward.
Certainly.
How would you like to proceed in the sense of, I know we have kind of 4 different areas here where you're involved. Do you want to give an update on each one? Do you want to I'll leave it to kind of you in the sense that we have
Well, we kind
courts,
of,
law, library, fines and costs, MDJs. I just want to make sure if you have a particular order in which you'd like to do
we
this.
were
or
going to
wait.
follow the set order
Great.
that you have here.
Okay.
You know, just as explanation, I think that's kind of a new methodology behind presenting, and the rationale for that is generally those, you know, the 3 subsequent presentations that you'll have are, from an operational sense, part of court administration, court operations. But because of the significance of those individual operations, they are separate cost centers that we administer differently day to day. So in the, I'll say in the Wayback Machine, those underlying departments presented separately, but generally they could all be wrapped under court administration in future years if you find it easier and more efficient to do that. I did ask each of those individuals to be here today for any operational based questions, but if you have none, we can proceed through those. I mean, particularly as it relates to the law library and costs and fines, they're pretty straightforward. The magisterial district courts are a little more complex just because of the sheer number, and we have always identified them as individual cost centers per location, so it's easier to track per location expenditures. So,
Well,
with that backstory.
Yeah, in that spirit, is there anything you'd like to share with us, courts in general? Obviously, we're thankful for your willingness to participate. You've also are willingness to understand our situation, also the memos that have been provided to us, and certainly the budget. But I don't know if there's any questions of my colleagues or any statement that you wanted to make prior to questions.
None that I already haven't. It may just be easier to address any questions that you have rather than muddy the waters.
All right. Questions for courts specifically before we move on to law library? I have none.
Not, and law library and fines and costs are pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I have no questions for courts, law, library, or fines and costs. Yeah. Any questions? All right.
You know, I just point out in some form or fashion, the services provided by the law library are to an extent required. The location in which we provide those is not a requirement that it be here. It could also exist in the public library system, but there would still be, you know, the onus would still be on us to provide those accesses. In terms of cost and fines, similar to what's been realized by the clerk of courts, you know, oftentimes it's regardless of which office is involved in the collection of outstanding fines, it normally comes down to the responsible party's ability to pay. And whether we engage a third party to assist with that endeavor or not, if the responsible party does not have an ability to pay, you will not see an appreciable increase in collections. I mean, that's just the pragmatic answer, and I just wanted to caution everyone on that in advance.
Sure.
Can we go down that rabbit hole?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just quickly.
Certainly.
You know, I just believe that, you know, there was an alleviation of debt earlier this year, or it occurred last year. You know, we're going to be going back to taxpayers and asking them to, you know, help with this structural budget deficit. It may not be now, but it's going to be in the future. And I think we have an obligation, and just in my humble opinion as one board member, to seek out those monies that are owed to the county for individuals that have, you know, went through the court system and have, you know, obviously had some level of interaction, which caused an administrative burden to the county at some level, and those fees have been compiled. You know, I'd like to know what options, you know, and I think I've had these discussions before, but both for the clerk of courts, I think it's 7.1 million. I know for fines and costs, I don't know what the number is, but I know it's pretty astronomical. Sort of what what options do we have? I know there's a third-party collection agency if we want to engage in that level, but I also know in the past probation has had a collections unit that was
And they still do.
it was Dick Quenzer back in the day, and I know Mike would appreciate that name being brought up. But those operations were relatively successful, more successful than we have, even with a third party vendor.
That's why there has always been a commitment to maintain that office and those efforts within adult probation. And I'm not suggesting that we don't seek out those that are responsible to pay. The only thing I was cautioning was there's an extent to how much you can request somebody to pay if they do not have the means to pay it. And we have to structure them on payment plans that may reflect that. And payment plans could be as little as $25 a month.
So would it make sense, let me ask this in the form of a question, to have sort of a little small committee that could come up with recommendations for the best collections process that may have the best achievable results, instead of saying, this is the way you do it, or this is the way the other counties do it. And maybe there are nuances that I, as a commissioner, other folks aren't aware of, that may assist in our collection efforts, knowing the clientele and seeing what has worked in the past. And maybe it would be a partnership with a collection agency. It may be something that could assist us in following up. Just a sort of a refocus on the best ways to be able to seek out revenue, and then do an evaluation of whether or not that an earnest opportunity has resulted in a significant amount of revenue gain.
Certainly.
So if you could just, I know we got a lot of to-do items, but just the idea of how that may work and give everybody a chance to provide their input, because other folks are far more skilled at this than I am, and there may be things that they could come up with a solution. Instead of asking what other counties do, they may want to say, how did Dauphin County, through their communication and talking to people that are doing the job, come up with a plan to collect these revenues? But I don't want it just to go by and say, well, we decided not to do it, and ultimately the president and judge would have to agree. So I'd like to make this as a
I see
formal
no reason
request.
to be apprehensive about that. I mean, certainly the president judge would be more than willing to have those discussions. To the extent that things would be referred to collections from the magisterial district level, there is a third party involved that is engaged by the Administrative Office of Pennsylvania Courts, and we have opted into that collection program. I think our efforts should be more focused on court accomplis level, because we do not have, to my knowledge, something similar in place yet. And there's multiple options available that are far more complicated at the common pleas level than at the magisterial district level.
Thank you for the willingness to take that back.
Certainly.
Yep.
And George, I have to follow up since you brought up his name from a historical perspective. For those at home who are wondering who Richard Dick Quenzer was, he was a former county employee with adult probation, and he had a satellite office in the courthouse, an old school computer, and he would type with two fingers, and that's what he would do. And he would go after those fines and costs for years. And I met him, and I met Angela Lanza, who was a new employee with adult probation at the time.
Still with adult.
And she still works at adult probation, and she was over there too. So just wanted to bring it up and clarify that name and Angela as well. She still works here and does a great job.
Great. All right, I think we're through courts, law library, fines and costs. We can move on to MDJs. Are there any questions for MDJs?
Yeah.
Or any up? Mr.
To what extent do we want to? I mean, I know there's going to be a lot of changes in this realm.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's several potential retirements. Obviously, I want to still extend gratitude and prayers to MDJ Smith, who was a great public servant, great leader, great human being, who has passed away more recently. I know there's obviously a vacant seat, and again, what are the plans to sort of efficiently take that those opportunities and where those alignments are occurring? I think there's the idea of redistricting and placing in a plan a more again, this is not my realm, but what are the game plans for the MDJ side?
Well, from an operational efficiency perspective, the untimely passing of Magisterial District Judge Smith created a significant instant impact to the volumes of the courts. I mean, as everybody involved with the courts knew, his particular magisterial district judge district was far and away the highest in terms of volume. I mean, it was not unheard of Monday through Friday for him to still be on the bench 5:30, quarter to 6 p.m. at night, and he was notorious for starting promptly at 8 a.m. Significant volume. So immediately following his passing, recognizing we would have to be reliant on coverage by visiting senior judges, the president judge cut an administrative order that changed the filing office just temporarily for certain portions of that magisterial district. At the end of this year, it is my intention to call that data and take a look at the impact moving those filing offices has had on the recipient offices now, and the burden of that shift was borne largely by what is Magisterial District Judge Judy's location, as well as Magisterial District Judge Lenker location. Depending on the volume share and the workload share between those, I think the president judge will then undertake kind of a harder look as to whether a permanent realignment of that district is necessary. This is it should be noted that's also while the judicial district has already been contending with a permanent loss, so to speak, of the office that was formerly occupied by then Magisterial District Judge McKnight. So we are heavily reliant in two locations for visiting senior magisterial district judge coverage, and to the extent that further coverage is necessary, that's being borne by our active magisterial district judges of the district. So in addition to their own district, they are filling in as needed at those other two locations. That, in a nutshell, even though it didn't sound like a nutshell, answers your question. So I apologize for drawing that out, probably more than you wanted to hear, but I just felt it was important to make sure we're comprehensive in our response on that.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Obviously, the volume impact for process and getting people scheduled promptly is
Right.
a massive impact. What's the budgetary impact of paying, senior judges as opposed to an MDJ? Is it significantly more throughout the year? I'm just more curious from a
To the
cost
county
perspective.
standpoint, there's no impact
Okay.
because they are employees of the Commonwealth.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The judges themselves.
Gotcha.
To the extent that they would have to travel less than 50 miles from outside of our county, past practice has been for the receiving county to pay their mileage.
Okay.
But that's the extent of the impact.
So pretty minimal. Pretty minimal. Okay. But the impact of volume, I would assume they don't get through nearly as much volume as an elected official. MDJ.
Right. And there's limitations on how much work a senior judge at any level, be it magisterial district judge, court of common pleas, or appellate courts, can handle based on an order of the state Supreme Court. The general rule is 8 days per jurisdiction per month.
Gotcha.
So, 8 days is not a substitute for a full-time judge.
Well, and it also makes it challenging because I would assume then there's multiple people working, multiple different judges coming into certain MDJ offices, having to work with staff.
Correct.
So staff are
Now,
interfacing with multiple people as opposed to one.
to the extent that they've been able to assist us in doing it, the unified judicial system has been able to assign the same judges from outside jurisdictions to the same locations on a repeating monthly basis to at least establish some familiarity. But on the off chance we were forced to have somebody new, maybe a magisterial district judge travels in retirement and is not available for an extended period of time, that could create some of those hardships or difficulties you've described.
Understood. Anything else? Mr. Lippert, thank you. Do you have anything?
I mean, again, I saw the related piece now, but are we going to call up, I guess the next one would be adult probation.
Let me see.
or,
Let me take a look
Sh-
here real quick.
Sharon
See who's-
Alexander.
here.
Sharon Alexander, I believe, is next for court reporters.
Court reporter. Got it.
I don't know that she's arrived. I don't see her. But you
We
could-
can move
could
forward and
be-
go to
Yeah.
Sally McQuinberry, adult probation.
I don't know if Sharon got stuck in a hearing this morning or not.
Okay.
I'll check on that.
That's fine. We can go back to it if we need to. It's not a problem.
Thank you for your flexibility.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Adult probation is going to be tab 24 in your book. For 2025, we're estimating revenue under 1.3 million. Expenses are projected over 692,000. For 2026, the revenue request is 1.3 million less than 2025. And the expenses are a $1.1 million increase, or 9.42%. There were no new positions or merit increases requested. We do have included in the budget for items bullet-resistant vests, 28 of them for $27,748 to replace some expiring ones. The 2025 budget for this department contained an $845,000 negative budget entry as part of the overall court's targeted budget amount. This is currently not included in 2026. And at the time of the writing, I didn't have this memo from the courts. So if that number was entered into the 2026 expense total, it would have only been an increase of 92,000, or 0.78%. And this is partially offset due to the split with juvenile probation as their budget increased, as a lot of those expenses shift down to their cost center. Due to the number of vacancies in the department, 3 POs have had their salary and benefit costs removed from the request. The reduction in revenue in the adult probation supervision fee line has been removed, and it's being deposited into their supervision fee fund in accordance with the requirements as we receive those. That's the compliance how that needs to be receipted. The reduction in revenue in the adult probation state salary is due to funds being moved to a separate cost center that's titled Improvement of Adult Probation Services Grants due to the PCCD reporting requirements, and then the salary line has been reduced by that same amount, just to not double budget for the same salaries. With the supervision fees, I know we did discuss if the PJ would like, he could replace some of that revenue as an offset, but as that is supervision fee funds, that would all need approved by the president judge in order to leave that fund.
All right. Welcome.
Thank you.
And I believe Commissioner Hartwick, your oversight. So is there anything you want to say to kick things off? Or
First, Director Barry comes with a extensive amount of background information, financial, administrative, and in my opportunity to meet with you on a couple of occasions, I've been extremely impressed by both your ability to understand operations, to be willing to not ask anybody to do things that you're not willing to do yourself, to understand more about the fiscal side of the operations, which was really helpful in having that understanding. And I think it's probably important to sort of have a little bit of a dialogue discussion that you feel comfortable having about supervision fees, about how sort of where that was in the budget, why it's supposed to be aligned in this way. But I think from my understanding, both from the staff level and from an administrative level, I want to say thank you for your tireless efforts. You're not going to see you on the front pages, but we know you're in the trenches, and we sincerely appreciate your willingness to do that with your staff and leadership. So, but my question would be supervision fees. I think that was the first thing when I took a look at the budget was, wow, we're losing all of this revenue. Can you sort of explain to folks how that occurred? Yep.
May I approach? Anticipating
Thank you.
Can you let us know who's joined?
Sure, I'm
This
sorry,
one?
yes. I brought with me today 2 of our deputy directors, or 2 only deputy directors, I should say, Gretchen Anderson and Andy Cooper, and my financial assistant, Beth Ann Hampton. I brought them to answer the tough questions today. So, So what I printed out for you is Act 77. It's a portion, not in its entirety. It's a lengthy act, but I printed out the first page. And then the page that is relevant to adult probation supervision fees, which is section 1102 on page 20, that relates to the costs for offender supervision programs. And what that act calls for is that there is a separate county restricted receipts account that is set up by the county treasurer to be dispersed at the pleasure of the president judge in the county. It also calls for that the monies have to be in a separate account. We have to be able to report by August 31st of the following year how that the revenue and the expenses that came out of that account. So that's required for us to report to the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. In addition to that, the act or the funds in that account will be audited by the Auditor General no less than every 3 years. So what we found when we were going through last year and I believe the preceding year's budget is that there were portions of those funds that were being directly deposited into the general fund. In addition to that, there is an adult probation improvement grant that comes to the county from the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. And what we found that there was portions of those funds that were being directly deposited into the general fund with the county as opposed to a separate account that would assist in tracking the expenses and revenue and the auditing of that from the Commission on Crime and Delinquency. So whereas it kind of looks like we have a loss in revenue there, we really don't. The revenue is still going into an account that supports adult probation services, salaries. It could be used for salaries and benefits. It could be used for training. And it could be used for other operational expenses, which has been over forever used to support various services within the adult probation department. But now those funds are going directly into the account as per the requirement through the act. So, and now those funds will be dispersed at the discretion of the president judge.
Again, we appreciate the cooperation on this as well, and the ability to ensure that that these funds are not commingled or used based upon the structure and intent of the law. We want to ensure that that's the case. We won't look backwards. We will look forward. But again, my concern is I just want to have this as a part of the public record. I don't know, from my perspective yet, through some whether or not these dollars in the past were used and being requested to be used for offsetting salaries in other probation areas, like potentially in juvenile. Or those are the only concerns that I've got. And this idea that we had continuing revenue to be able to support those positions, it just over the course of years, you heard Commissioner Priest say it. There were grant funding, and there's been revenues that have been proposed to be able to create new positions for new initiatives. And in those new initiatives, I'm not 100% certain that there weren't potential revenues that were committed in this area as the basis by which to create those positions. That's something that we still want to examine and clean up and make the request of as we go back and examine our notes from the juvenile side. So again, we appreciate the cooperation. We know I've heard this from counties, about the supervision fund and the structure, and I think it has in previous years been done that way. But when the combination of the departments happened, I think at least over the last 2 years that those revenues were booked in ways that I'm hopeful, not being used for leverage for other job requests and positions. So it's just my only statement. Thank you.
Can you give us maybe a little bit of just in the time you've been here, what this fund's been used for, or some things in which this fund has covered, and what's been the process for this fund previous, in the sense of, does it come before the Board of Commissioners for approval in the past, and now it'll be at the PJ's discretion? I'm just more curious about if this is a change in process of even how these funds were, because I when I see a request from probation, I don't see which fund it's coming out of. Does that make sense? So I'm just more curious about that, if you happen to know.
Well, I can speak to January 6th to date. Those funds have been used to offset salaries and benefits of some staff. They have been used for training expenses. I would say the bulk of the equipment expenses that come, there were tasers that were purchased, new tasers that were purchased, ammunition. Quite a bit, if not all, of our equipment costs are coming from those funds. More recently, the judge has asked me to take a look at some renovations in the building, as we have many of our officers that are double bunked in one office with one desk, and he has authorized the use of those funds to complete some renovations in the building, so that all of the officers do have a desk to sit at. So that's been primarily, historically, I'll defer to Steve as far as what funds have been used for.
Well, the funds can only be utilized as described by the act, and successfully, at least as long as I've been in and around the courts, be it as a court employee or a county employee. To my knowledge, there's never been a finding for any of our audits, so that should at least give us pause and look back. Moving forward, largely cleaning this up in terms of what it looks like from an accounting side is a question of labels. I think in practice, there's no strong desire either by the current leadership at probation or the president judge to change any of the things that we've historically, year in and year out, committed to, be it, offset of certain salary costs, but it is a large component of the funds that are identified for equipment expenditures, training expenditures, and things that, without this act, would ultimately fall within the general fund to do. So I think that's the general takeaway, and that's been consistent, at least in the last year and the year prior to that while I was in my current role.
And I'll just chime in here from a purchasing standpoint. Although all the funds have to be approved by the PJ, any of those purchase orders, requisitions, or contracts still come before the Board of Commissioners for you to vote on and ultimately approve before they would go into effect. I think about the only thing the PJ could approve without the board would be giving us money to the general fund. Otherwise, all county purchasing policies still apply.
Yeah, otherwise it falls under normal procurement rules. It's just we route it over. The only exceptions would be, general training requests which you still see as part of your packet, but generally he's the signatory on this.
Thank you. That's helpful. Do you have anything? Nothing? All right. If there's nothing else, move on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you. Do we want to go backward, or do we want to?
We have
I see Chad's here. We could
Chad's
move
here,
forward.
so is Matt Miller.
All right. We'll have Juvenile Probation Services, Chad Lib.
All right, they're going to be tab 25 in your binder. Revenue for 2025 is estimated 20,000 over budget, and expenses 591,000 under budget. For 2026, the revenue requested is 13,000 over 2025's budget, and the expenses are 740,000 over the 2025 budget. They had no new positions or merit increases requested, and the items that are included in their budget are 18 bullet-resistant vests for a total of 17,820 for staff. Because this was merged with adult probation last year, there was no negative budget entry in this department for 2025. And I believe in that memo, or depending on what the board and the courts decide, one could be added if it's agreed upon. There's an increase to the budget of $709,000 due to costs being shifted from the Adult Probation Cost Center. The overall increase across all of probation together is $791,000 or 4.19%. Two positions that were vacant prior to 1/1/24 have had their costs removed. Electronic monitoring fees have been down as the courts will waive all assessed fees if the juvenile has a successful completion. IVE funds have declined as most kids have been deemed ineligible for reimbursement. The revenue that you see for the community-based probation unit has been the same for approximately 12 years. This has historically been based on staffing levels, but is changing to a performance-based reimbursement based on successful implementation of certain initiatives set by the Juvenile Court Judges Commission. Our juvenile probation department has already been working on implementing these initiatives. There's a potential for an additional $79,000 in funding for that line that has been included in the state Senate's budget proposal. But I will point out that we had this meeting prior to the budget impasse, so take that for what it's worth. There's also a potential legislation to change the minimum age for juveniles to 13 or 14 from 10. This would depend on the final legislation, severity of crimes, and then if that would pass, that would ultimately change costs in their budget.
Welcome, Chad.
Good morning,
Good to see you.
Commissioners.
I'm going to hand it over to your oversight commissioner, Commissioner Hartwick, so I'll let you kind of introduce or ask questions to begin.
If you could just provide an oversight of sort of where juvenile probation is at currently.
Yeah, so as you know, from 2012 when 2013 when we merged as a department, we had 81 staff at juvenile probation. We're down to 55, and that's all a result of the good initiatives that we've done in Pennsylvania under the Juvenile Justice System Enhancement Strategy. We've been able to reduce statewide pretty much about 50% of referrals referred to all the probation departments, specifically here in Dauphin County. So we've adapted respectively and fiscally responsibly to ensure that we have, one, the manpower to carry out a lot of these functions. So, we're really in good shape in terms of good leadership, like Nicole and Chris Hakel, our deputies. And as Chris stated, in terms of initiatives moving forward, some of the mandates that are tied to the grant and aid, performance-based, we've already been doing a lot of that. It's really evidence-based informed intake, and that's under Nicole's leadership. She's done a really good job of implementing most of those requirements in preparation for July 1st, 2027, when all that goes into place. So we're really in good shape that way. But in terms of our major issues, or is really the spike in violent crimes that we're seeing, the gun charges we're seeing in juvenile, and the lack of detention beds. Unfortunately, we continue to borrow beds even today from other counties, and these are really essential and required based on the type of charges we're seeing. Pennsylvania has really got it right in terms of the juvenile justice system. We really have been able to identify those high-risk youth, really in terms of accountability and competency development, as well as victim restoration as it relates to barge. But we really have done a great job through the leadership of our department to ensure that those difficult youth that we're dealing with are provided the services. And unfortunately, some of those services are out-of-home services that are required. The difficulty we face, is really around our private providers taking our most difficult youth. And that's where sometimes we get the overmatch situation with our needs-based budget and other funding. But in terms of the general fund budget, that doesn't really affect us from that financial cost. But at the same time, overall, as a county, we need to ensure that we have the staffing to carry out the continued requirements of the Juvenile Probation Department. Nicole, I don't know if you want to say anything about what you're seeing from the intake level based on what I stated.
I mean, not a whole lot to add. We are seeing a large number of our youth are actually diverted. I mean, we have a very successful diversion program, so those are kids that don't touch the court system. we're able to put some minor conditions in place, our success rate with diverting youth is, I think, upwards of 95% do not re-enter the system. But as Chad mentioned, we do have some more difficult youth, and I think that it's been something that we've continued to face over the last year. I think I've presented many times that unfortunately our firearms charges continue to creep up. Last week was another tough week for us with firearms related offenses, and we do need the appropriate services to be in place so that we can keep our community safe, but ultimately help those kids get back on the right track.
I do want to highlight the diversion, as she stated. 15 years ago, we only diverted, really had consent decree and formal justice. It's a alternative to a disposition of formal probation, and we average about 23-24% of youth referred under that category. We're up over 60% now that are really diverted out of the system. First-time offenders, low-risk charges. We really educated our police chiefs and our police departments on diversion to the point where they actually make recommendations in their police report at times that this youth may serve best for a diversion program. So, countywide, we really have a good program in place, and we're really happy. And I just want a big shout out to our staff who work diligently day in and day out, especially with the lack of detention beds. And Nicole and Chris taking 2 calls at 2-3 o'clock in the morning trying to find a bed. It's unfortunate, but it's the nature of our system right now.
Can you speak just for the public's awareness to the financial impact of beds right now? Meaning, like the cost continues to increase as well, right? It's not just a matter of finding a location; it's also a matter of the cost increase for housing. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, it's a simple supply and demand economic.
But maybe you could speak to that in the sense of even in the last few years. I mean, if you don't have the numbers in front of you exactly, but maybe you can, just anecdotally talk about what a bed might have used to cost a couple years ago and what it costs now, because I think I have seen those numbers and it's pretty significant.
Absolutely. And certainly, COVID was kind of a tipping point for us as a system. We talk about pre-COVID, so even 2019, 2020, I mean, you were averaging $200 to $300, maybe $400 for a detention bed a day on the higher end. But you had plenty of options. Plenty of even more local options. After COVID occurred, and then with some of the additional, insurance liability, the type of kid that we were detaining, when the system evolved, we were not putting kids that got into a school fight into detention anymore, right? We were talking about kids that were out there committing robberies, some more violent offenses. So you take kind of COVID, insurance liability, and then the type of kid that we were ultimately detaining. People were not willing to step up and do the job and work with some of those more difficult youth. And then prices became increasingly and pretty steadfast greater. I mean, today we're talking about $800 a day for a detention bed. We, as a state, have about 500 licensed bed for the entire Commonwealth. When you take out the 7 or 8 counties that have contracted county beds, so Philadelphia's, your Lancasters, for the remaining 60 counties, we have a little over 100 detention beds to share. And it's gotten to the point where many of our counties, we have not gotten to that point yet, but many of the counties in Pennsylvania will actually drive to Ohio for a detention bed. And interestingly enough, their detention bed rates are about $300 a day.
And to add to some of the dilemma that we experience is females. We have very limited resources for females. And with human trafficking issues on the rise, we're seeing a lot more coming to our department. It's become very difficult.
Well, thank you for the work you do, because I think it's obviously so important, and I think as you're seeing resources dry up, I mean, I know your commitment to restorative justice is. I've had discussions with both of you around that, and I know the challenges of sending a child 60 miles away, 120 miles away, staying in contact with their family, if transportation's an issue for the family and all of that. So thank you for doing what you can to find those options when they exist. And certainly thanks for your entire staff for the work that they do. And obviously, like you said, the middle of the night calls that you get and the things that you have to do in this type of work, we appreciate. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah. Again, I'm waiting for Eric back to take a look at the list. If I could just this is the first year that adult juvenile probation were separately related to budgets. There are some significant concerns I've got related to budget proposals, which are, instead of me making a statement, how about Chris, you describe how the pulling apart as sort of where it's resulting, the loss of potential revenue related to adult supervision fees, but also the increased request for expenses, which are pretty significant.
Yeah. So although operationally probation split in the beginning of this year, the 26 budget is really the first budget where we're separating out those costs. Because from a budget standpoint, even though they split, a lot of their juvenile costs were still coded into the adult cost center for this year. Not the supervision fees that we talked about, but their general fund costs. So, and to give an apples to apples comparison, when we talk about the court's budget in years past where they've had, a targeted amount, the reduction in budget happened entirely in adult probation. So if you factor, it was $845,000 in the 2025 budget. So if you factor that into 2026, and look at probation as a whole, the increase overall is 791,000, which is the majority in juvenile because a lot of the costs shifted. There's in adult probation, you only see an increase of 0.78%. And that's a shift of a lot of stuff costs. Adult probation's obviously had some reductions in expenses along with that, but not to the same degree that juvenile has increased.
So the way I see these numbers here, the changes there, adult probation is a 1.
Excuse me, Commissioner, speak into the mic.
Adult probation is a $1.113 million increase over the previous budgeted year. Juvenile probation is a $740,000 increase over the previous year, and we've seen a reduction in revenue at the same time.
Right, because adult probation had, you see such a large increase because the adult probation had that negative entry in it for last year. Now, as per the memo from Mr. Libhart here and the president judge, you will have a reduction of approximately 700,000 between adult and juvenile probation to bring that down in the next version of the budget that's presented to the board.
But just again, for presented budget, the numbers are 1.113 more in adult, 740,000 more in juvenile, and $1.2 million reduction in general fund revenues because of the realignment of these adult supervision fees.
Correct.
Exactly. So, which is a negative variance of 1.8 plus almost $3 million just for the probation budget. So again, notice why there's significant concerns there, and that's why I'm just raising those because obviously that was difficult for me when I was going through these budgets to take a look at both the variance and the pulling apart and what the potential impact would be to our general budget. So, if supervision fees aside, there is still some work on expenses here that I think are relevant based upon those numbers.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that our radio communication lease, as well as our tasers international, it's really monopolized the whole business to the point where we have no control in terms of their upgrades and eliminating the older models. So we had to go through the Taser 10 now, and they are pretty costly. But unfortunately, those are the only things on the market, and that really has increased just for us alone. Going to increase 26,000 for us, but the radios are 60-something thousand for that as well. So these are essential tools that we had to have.
But when I see these things pulled apart, you'd expect to see an increase in expenditures in one area and a reduction in expenditures in another department. That's not what we've seen in this presentation. We've seen increase in expenditures about 1.8 million and a reduction in revenue of 1.2. Not that the 1.2 won't be used to take care of issues within the budget, but that's no longer at our discretion. So that, again, just want to raise it as a concern, a significant concern, because I still see, you know, staffing levels. There's a number of things we can address with those, but I think that's certainly an area where examination should occur.
I did kind of touch on this briefly when Director Barry was up here. Now, this is ultimately would need approved by the PJ at his discretion, and although the supervision fees took a more circuitous route in prior years, I'm not a solicitor, so I want to watch how I say this. We have enough salaries and benefits that should the PJ choose, he could use those to offset some of the adult probation expenses, reducing the 1.2 million revenue that was, I don't want to say lost, because we didn't lose dollars. They're just going into the fund as prescribed by by law, but they could circle back.
They could reduce the increases in their proposed budget by correlating amount of revenue, even though it's not dollar for dollar.
Correct.
But that doesn't help juvenile.
No.
And just to be clear, the only new operational expense outside of something you're already utilizing that's just more expensive now is the bullet resistant vests. Correct. That's the only thing I'm seeing here is like
yeah, they've gone
new
up about
expense.
$300 in the last few years.
But
and by the union contract, we required to make sure every officer has one, and they expire every 5 years and replaced.
The other sort of cost driver here that we discussed last week as well for a couple other departments is that for purposes of budgeting, the numbers you have in front of you assume a 5th year of the current collective bargaining agreements. So that's another reason we might see an increase here. So even though we haven't finished collective bargaining, of course, just from a sort of projection standpoint, that's what you're seeing.
I don't know if that equals 3. Vests, tasers, and collective bargaining.
Anything else? Are we good?
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Libby. Thank you for being here. Thank you. We'll go to domestic relations. Sheila Britt.
For 2025, we estimate revenue under 1.1 million and expenses under 1.2 million. Actually, hold on, I apologize.
Did you want to give us a brief on this?
Yeah. As I was reading the numbers, I realized I did not replace them. Okay. Domestic relations has its own fund on our books, so bear with me a second here. As a fund overview, they're 1.2 million under budget in revenue and expenses. For next year, their request overall is 278,000 over 2025. As they are part of the courts, they have a few items that were requested and are included. You can see 11 chairs, 5 scanners, self-service printing kiosk, and 7 printers for a cost of $12,886,000. From a general fund standpoint, for 2025, they are projected under approximately 500,000, and the increase for next year is, as requested, is 99,000 in general fund dollars. And another note that the reimbursement contract with the state was renewed effective 10/1/25 and continues the same 66% reimbursement that they receive as in years past.
Chris, could you give us an update before they start of the revenue budget numbers and why they're down 1.3 million?
Overall, they're down because their expenses are under. So the county only pays 33% of that. Their revenue isn't.
What tab are they again?
They're tab 26 in your book. So their revenue doesn't work like those in the general fund where it just comes in as an offset. They bring in whatever revenue, or really reimbursement in this case, from the state, and then the county contributes its percentage into their fund to make them whole. And that's why you see the same overall revenue being under, is because they didn't have enough expenses to get, they can't get reimbursed over and above what we spend.
The general fund impact. The general fund impact for this department is, you said 500,000 roughly?
It was 500,000 under budget for this year. For 2026, the general fund impact would be 2.66 million.
2.6 million, okay. And the only other question I have is, has your department experienced any issues with the state impasse right now of reimbursements?
No, we have.
Could you help me with that, Chris? Sorry. Of the general fund impact, you said we pay 33%. So these are the new numbers. All right. You guys can go ahead.
Yeah, and if you'd like to give an update or a report on your office while we're trying to get some numbers straight here, you feel free.
All right. Well, good morning, Commissioner Douglas, Priest, and Hartwick. With me is my fiscal manager, Lulu, and behind me is
Where's the
Doyle,
expenses for this year?
and of course Steve. Pleased to present our 2026 budget.
Where's the general
Some highlights are
amount?
our office operates on a budget of approximately 8.1 million and generates about 4.8 million in revenue each year. In 2024, DRS collected 35 million in child support, proudly served about 8,864 cases. Notably, our proposed budget has a minimal increase of only 3.5% when compared to last year's 2025 budget. Most of those expenses are outside of our control that contributed to the minimal increase, and includes, for example, like rent and indirect costs. But in our continual effort to minimize and control internal expenses and maintain a lean budget, we've even ended some service contracts. We've started ordering some supplies from Amazon just to keep the prices down. But our revenue is primarily from the state and federal reimbursements. They supervise the administration of our child support program. Our primary funding and revenue source is a combination of federal reimbursements and the county's contribution of 34%. 66% of the DRS revenue comes from federal reimbursements of expenses, and another funding stream is federal incentives, which is linked to performance measures. Another way of saying this, for every dollar the DRS spends on allowable expenditures, the county generally reimburses 66% for those expenses. The federal incentives assist helping our operate an efficient and effective child support program. The projected 2025 performance incentives far exceeded the 2025 budget incentives by an additional $60,373. Over the course of 2026, the state estimates our incentives to be at $597, which is 18,000 increase when compared to the 2025 budgeted estimate. Our funding stream is a significant contribution to the county and translates a measurable savings for Dauphin County taxpayers and support services needed for growing families of Dauphin County. Before I close, I would be remiss not to say thank you to our PJ, our President Judge, our court administration, and to our commissioners. But more importantly, I want to thank the DRS staff. This year, our staff participated on the Capitol steps with other DRS offices throughout the Commonwealth to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Title IV-D program. The purpose was to celebrate the positive evolution of the child support program and the continuation to strengthen families by ensuring children receive financial support from both parents. Today's families are much different from the families we served in past years, and we continue to consistently accommodate those changes in our office. But the staff, their work does make a difference in every day in these families. Their efforts may go unnoticed because sometimes it's a challenging and thankless job due to the high job demands and emotional taxing nature of the child support program. But I see the pride that my staff takes in their work, and many find it incredibly rewarding because they know they're playing a vital role in making a difference and ensuring children receive the financial support they need, as well as making a difference in children's lives. But I wanted to recognize my staff, applaud them for their efforts, and during these tough times, our staff remains committed to serving the families of Dauphin County. This concludes my budget presentation, and I'm open if you have any questions.
Well, thank you for that. Commissioner Priest.
I don't really have any questions in terms of your numbers. Everything looks good to me. Appreciate the work that you do. The beneficiaries are the thousands of children and families here in the county who are afforded the opportunity to have funding come in. That's a lifeline for many of them. I know that a lot of times 99% of the phone calls you get, folks are not happy, and 50% of those calls end with them probably still not happy. But your folks are dealing with folks having some of the most difficult times of their life. I appreciate the work that you do and the professionalism staff show with these folks, and I can tell you it's a tough job you have over there. I've been over there a couple of times. Some of your folks have retired in the last couple of years who said that it's probably one of the most fulfilling jobs they've ever had in their life. But again, it's a very difficult environment you're in, dealing with folks, again, most of them who aren't happy when they're calling. So thank you.
Yeah, mine is more internal. I know you had a significant amount of vacancies last year.
A lot of senior
that
staff left.
And it resulted in a significant amount of a reduction in the overall spending. That
74,000 in salaries. Yeah.
Well, according to what we looked at, the vacancies might have accounted for close to $500,000.
Well, I mean, and
savings.
I'm just focusing on a couple of the senior staff.
And I need to better understand and how that correlates to sort of savings in the overall budget.
The savings in the overall budget comes down to that transfer from general fund line, because anything we don't spend, we save on. I mean, it is a 33% savings on the cost that you see in here because that's the only portion we're responsible for. But any dollar not spent on these reports that I gave you, that's where you see that reduction in the general fund. And that on the reports, the summary reports I provided, you'd see in the transfer from judicial interfund transfers line, in the current year summary reports.
And making the request, it was what the actual estimate for this year is $2,003,000 in full expenditures from the general fund, which was 2.566 in Western. So
correct.
Because of the vacancies, and this year that goes up. But in similar budgets, like children, you're estimating for higher salary costs.
Yeah, based on, and this is as of 9/17, they had 18 vacancies in their department, but we budget similar to children and youth and the needs-based, and keeping those on the books is a better option than eliminating.
I just want to figure out how that translates in the way those dollars are used to be able to spend for the 33% of county money. So, again, internal questions I've got.
Well, do you have anything else for us?
I know that. Appreciate it. I know it's a difficult job, and I know that we've had folks that have been coming in here with concerns and complaints. Hopefully, those have all been addressed. As as Commissioner Prees outlined, there's significant challenges in the outcomes of some of these cases, but want to make sure that all of our folks and people that are involved are treated with dignity, respect, and the ability to get the answers to their questions. So, appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Man, I need some can we have a budgeted line item for WD-40 for this chair? I mean, seriously, I can't move in any direction. I mean, I can't move to the right and left without it.
That's great.
I guess I'm the squeaky wheel.
Court reporters, Sharon Alexander, how are you?
How are you doing?
Good morning.
So, court reporters is tab 23 in your budget.
Hello.
Or your binder here. As far as revenue for this year, we're expecting them to come right on budget at 50,000. Expenses, we're estimating under $32,655. For 2026, revenue is going to hold at $50,000 as requested. Expenses are additional $95,722,000. There were no new positions or merit increases requested. Included in the budget is 2 next-gen court reporting machines at a total cost of $12,600. You'll see in the contracted temp services line, that's due to the need to to hire additional contractors to assist due to staff vacancies and 2 additional judges that are starting in 2026.
Revenues. I'm just trying to look at what the actual revenues are collected. Just 50,000 is a strange number to keep exactly, and we meet it exactly. Is that how this works?
I would expect it maybe within 500 to 700. It's transcript revenue. There's no real large swings.
Okay.
And historically hasn't been.
And the increase in current costs, despite coming under. Did you have a vacancy this year?
We have 2 vacancies right now.
Yeah, I've got no questions here. I know there's technology investments that we're making, and I know that recruitment continues to remain a challenge for folks who have those adequate skill sets.
It's particularly difficult for Miss Alexander. I mean, that is an employment sector that has been decreasing in the active numbers and also decreasing accordingly in those that are willing to seek public employment, as opposed to the benefits they can gain from setting their own hourly rate as a freelance. So
we appreciate
it's not unique to our district.
Is court reporting specifically at risk of? I know we're talking a lot about artificial intelligence that's coming into all different types of workplaces. Is this a place in which that's a risk, or that's?
I don't know that AI alone presents any more of a risk to it. I mean, there are some jurisdictions in the federal and in other state jurisdictions that, in lieu of in-person reporting, has gone to recording and then paying a third party to do the transcription.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me to be, where do you want to spend the money?
Sure.
I mean, essentially, you're going to spend the money regardless, and I do think there is a benefit to the in-person reporting and being able to shift the individuals around. But it's less AI and more recording software.
Okay.
Yes, I have one question related to the vacancies, just so I'm clarifying what's in front of me and understanding it. I see there's 12 total positions within the department. And of those 3 vacancies, the 3 you're referring to?
We just hired 1. We have 2 open positions.
Okay, so did you hire? Which vacancy is gone now? Because I see Alexander, Crawford, and McPherson.
Crawford is gone.
Crawford is now hired. Okay, the reason I'm asking is because the vacancies are from 22 and 23, so 2 and 3 years ago, and neither of them were allocated any funding last year. So what's the plan if we're filling those spots.
This is another example of these two vacancies in particular, which were, as you said, not funded, yet were never put before the salary board to actually eliminate the complement spot.
All right, so we'll have a plan of action moving forward to make that happen, so that these numbers balance out on the books.
That's usually a component, if I may, of what's agreed to with the president judge as it relates to the staffing numbers. Generally, he'll opt, as has his predecessors, to rather than abolish them, not fund them and not fill them for a given year.
Got it. Again, the main reason I was asking is that we just filled the position that's been vacant since September, but the other two, 2022 and 2023, that's what I was asking. Thank you.
Can I ask a staffing workload question? Just
Certainly.
with the introduction of 2 new judges, is that going to increase the need, given that we're talking about 2 staff that hasn't been filled for a while, but are we anticipating increased workload?
We are, because it will allow 2 more judges to sit simultaneous to our existing staff, which many days she is stressed beyond the available number of bodies we have. Once it, rolling back to the beginning of this conversation, in a perfect world, we'd be able to fill them. Frankly, she advertises almost year round, and we get few, if any, applicants, just for some of the reasons that I've already stated. So, I mean, the stresses in my mind, we should probably expect to continue.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Next time, don't say so much.
Yeah. Next up, work release, Matt Miller.
So work release is going to be tab 27 in your binders. For 2025, we're estimating revenue to be under $144,520,000 and expenses under $167,883. For 2026, the revenue request is down $160,000. Expenses as requested are $825,052 over 2025. Included in the budget is $3,500 for miscellaneous small items that will inevitably get replaced throughout the year. They also requested 70 new bunk beds for $100,000 that is not currently in the budget. The 2025 budget for this department contained a $368,020 negative budget entry as part of the overall board's targeted budget amount. This entry is currently removed for 2026. If that entry from the 25 budget would be factored into the current 2026 expense total, the expenses would increase $423,342 or 5.1%. The large increase you see in their medical services line is due to the estimated increases due to the new contract with Medico. That is their portion of the overall contract. Similar to the prison, there is an outstanding, which I think this may have been resolved, but there is an outstanding court decision regarding phone commissions. Should the commissary funds no longer be available for this purpose, expenses would increase by approximately $45,000 to cover the remaining costs still being paid out of there. They're currently working on closing one of the men's wings and reducing from 3 to 2 dorms, which would allow better supervision and reduce staffing. They're also exploring the possibility of establishing transitional housing in the vacant wing for those that successfully complete their program and are no longer required to stay at the center. This would allow those individuals a place to stay as they continue to transition into society, and they would pay program fees at a lower rate than rentals currently on the market. 3 full-time positions remain vacant as current resident levels remain low. Should levels increase, they would look to fill them. And the Act 81 funding has decreased as a result of more centers applying for funding. Many have remained closed as a result of COVID, and long after. This is the first year we're seeing a reduction, but they have begun to get up and running, reducing the county's share of the grant.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
With me is Angela Shaver, Fiscal Manager, and Deputy Director Travis Hawk. As presented here, I would like to talk about bunk beds. And the good news is that I think we found a way to pay for them out of our current year's budget. But this is why they're so important. If we purchase these bunk beds, I'm going to be able to condense the 3 dorms in the mail center to 2. They need to be replaced. They are the original bunk beds. To me, they're a liability. They have no top bed rails. They have no ladders. We haven't had to top bunk anyone in a while, which is a relief to me because we have had issues where individuals have fallen from the bunks and thankfully haven't been seriously injured. These new bunk beds would have ladders and bed rails. Again, it will allow us to condense the 2 male populations into 2 dorms from 3. We have space. Due to the jail population being down, there's a corresponding reduction in our work release population. How we best utilize that space, I think I've made no secret, is that we have a segment of our population that desperately needs safe transitional housing. And to that end, I've spoken to some of you about it. Steve Libhart has been out physically. We walked around the center. I think we have an opportunity to do something that will benefit the residents that we're serving and will also correspondingly generate income as well. Along those lines, we will lose my train of thought here. Give me a minute. Originally, I had envisioned renovations, and I understand now that we can't do that. However, I'm still committed to finding a way to do that within the current constructs, and I think we can do that. I have identified 2 men that will be eligible for release that have traditionally shown that they do very poorly when they're left on their own, that this concept could work for them. I've actually talked to them about it, and they're all in on it. I have physically gone and seen another transitional living center in Carlisle and talked to the director of that center and how he runs that. And I think, therefore, there is an opportunity to do this, to use the existing space we have in a good way for the residents of Dauphin County, for the individuals we serve, and for Dauphin County government.
Could I ask a couple questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to just say, Matt, you and your team are always thinking outside the box, and this is another area where you're doing that to try to save taxpayers and run the department more efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you for your service, both of you. I know you do a lot of good work, and I want to thank you for your service. I just want to know how many beds do we have at work release now, and how many are filled?
We have 348 beds, 74 female beds, and 274 male beds. Our current population is 121. We have 107 men and 14 women. So that's a occupancy capacity of 35%.
And this is really trend has been going on since COVID with the reduction in population. I'm just wondering, sort of what proposals have you made or what staff adjustments have you made over the last several years that sort of reflective of that population?
Well, at this point, with the vacancies we haven't been filling them. Not knowing, I think the occupancy rate, if you look in 2019, prior to the pandemic, our average daily rate was 233 inmates per day or residents per day, which translates, if you look at that today, that would be a 52% occupancy rate. So we're basically a little over half of what we were prior to COVID. I've been mindful of those. The seed's been planted. Once you get through the pandemic and everything, the unknown quantities and the unknown variables that were going along with that, that's when I started looking at space the past 2 years. Well, what can we do with this space? Because the trends and the numbers don't seem to indicate that it's going to go up. So that's when, I thought about this transitional living center concept, and that's sort of, what I've been doing. I've been very mindful of the vacancies we have, and also will moving forward.
Look, I'm trying to be as nice as I can. I sat here and listened to a prison budget, That was absolutely one of the worst presentations I've heard. I've heard no answers, no solutions, no ways to cut costs. I'm hearing from work release, and with the reduction in staffing, I'm not hearing of future down the road changes. But these things have been going on for a couple of years. And, for us to be in a position, trying to make transitions and cost savings with the change in population, I would have hoped that we would recommend one of two things: either figuring out ways to fill up work release, which is another option. Like, what is the barriers? I know we've got a small prison population, but it would be great to reduce that population by 100. Maybe that would be another way we could close a wing. And what would it take in order to sort of focus on and have a collective effort to either reduce prison population to fully utilize, because both being down and expenses going up is a recipe for disaster. And that's what I continue to see. But in both areas, population's down, expenses going through the roof, and no change. And maybe some down the road plans to be able to do this. I think a big part of what we're supposed to be doing is trying to anticipate some of these changes and try to come up with ways to offset those kind of concerns rather than sort of reacting down the road related to these concerns. And again, hindsight's 2020. Lord knows I've made so many mistakes in my life. This is not about sort of looking back and pointing fingers, but we are now in a predicament where we've got both trends moving in the wrong direction, and we've got all of this available space, and yet we're facing now a potential increase related to those revenues that are overwhelming. Now, if you're operating at 33% of the capacity or 35% of capacity, you should be operating with 35% of staffing, or at least a correlating level of staffing that would be adjusted based upon the, sort of the need and the utilization, or having a plan to fill up the place and ramping up because there's a game plan to be able to utilize it for those revenue purposes. So which is it? I mean, which direction are we moving?
Our revenue never went down. In fact, during COVID, when every other work release center shut down, we stayed open. We found a way to keep open, to keep people working, to keep our residents working and housed. And we got over our revenue projections, which we have every year with the exception of this year. So I do take exception to that because we have met our revenue projections regardless of what our space is. And as far as putting the right individuals into the work release center from the jail, I don't want unsentenced individuals in the work release center. That's a recipe for destruction, for disaster. And I am getting individuals to the work release center as quickly as they become eligible. That's the best answer I can give you.
What would it take to ramp up for staffing if you had the work release center filled?
We would make do with the staff we have.
So we're
fill these
in an
vacancies.
Operational world.
But correct, I would go over that with the court first.
Understood.
See what positions we need filled.
And Matt, first of all, I'm trying not to be a reflection on you because I appreciate and value that. I'm just very frustrated from a commissioner's perspective with not seeing correlating expense reductions when we've got a place that's empty, and we've got a place where we went from 1,300 prison population down to 800, and I see expenses doubling. And in this case, we've just not seen a correlation in reduction in expenses that match sort of the population you have, or a game plan to be able to move to utilize the facility. Or if work release, 100 and some inmates or 100 and some folks at work release is good, but we've got the space for 300. So why haven't we closed down a wing so far? Like, I'm asking those questions.
You have to get the right people in there for one, and we have done that. But to your point, our revenue projections haven't been negatively impacted by the reduced population.
But revenue projections based upon what population? Again, if you had 300 people in there, your revenues would be significantly higher. So you're projecting revenue at a lower amount, and you're meeting those revenue projections, but it's not a revenue that's projected at the facility being full. So again, that's
we staffing for us. We have so many senior people. It's really hard to lower. We're running 10 a shift right now. It's really hard to lower that because with everybody that needs off all the time, we're so close to like avoiding overtime with our part-time people, but our people are so senior and have so much time to use. It's really hard to reduce staff more. We're not going to fill our 3 spots right now, but 10 people a shift, we're right there because we could drive them around. There's so many things our POs are doing. It is so different. They work side by side with these residents way better than just being glorified babysitting. When I started there, it was glorified babysitting. Not today. These guys are working with these residents, trying to help them.
You have always done a phenomenal job. And I'd like to see 300 folks out there that are filled related to that and a reduction in the jail population. That to me would be a better movement towards reintegration and community safety in a way that works. But that's not what we're saying.
No, I know.
You understand? Like, it's not,
I understand.
I want to make that clear.
I see the solution here as a multi-pronged approach. We're running the department efficiently and effectively. We have an issue at Dauphin County Prison where we lowered 500 inmates and still the costs are skyrocketing. But I think, as you had mentioned, and I see Steve sitting behind you still, this conversation has to include the courts and the PJ and come to a solution that is satisfied. Clearly, it's not adding up. We can't continue going down the same direction moving forward. There's got to be some changes. And one of them is you're talking about cutting from 3 to 2, which is key. And I think that's an opportunity for us to find a solution to works out.
Can I
George
ask?
is right. These costs are they're not sustainable. Over.
Can I ask you guys in? I also had the opportunity to tour the facility and really appreciate you showing me all the nuances of the place, and I can certainly vouch for the need for the new bunk beds. If you had those bunk beds today, how long would it take you to implement a plan to close one of the wings and then move towards the transitional housing idea?
I could do that within 2 weeks.
Can I ask a question just for the public clarification? You don't determine eligibility. So like I just want the public to be aware that like you don't get to be like this person's eligible to come to work release now from the prison. Who makes that determination? Just for the public to be aware.
The court.
The court makes that determination. The judge typically, correct? So I just think it's important that people understand that like you get probably a list regularly of people who have newly become eligible for work release. You review that and you make determinations on the expedients in which they will transfer from Dauphin County Prison to work release, and you create a plan of action for that. And ultimately, I would doubt there's too many people sitting over at Dauphin County Prison that are work release eligible, and they're sitting over at Dauphin County Prison. I would guess that number is pretty low, correct?
That is correct.
So I think I want that to be a point of emphasis to say, I do think this might also be a philosophical shift in trying to, work with the courts to find more openings for work release. Assuming they exist, they might not. There might be certain parameters we're going to stay away from giving work release access, and that might be the brunt of who is remaining at the prison. I do want to, though, also talk about the transitional living space. Do you anticipate it will obviously generate revenue in these individuals paying some form of rent, but you also have a lot of transitional living grant options for low-income housing and such. Have you bird dogged any of those and looked and said, okay, this is one we could potentially apply for that would be relevant to our circumstance? Or has that been part of your strategy and thinking of
It would
how?
be. I'd like some assistance with that. So
Okay.
if we could, I'd certainly open to that as we move forward. But I find with everything else we've done in work release since we've started initiating new programs, if we start small and then move forward and gradually expand it, I think that's been successful to me.
So you'd say these 2 men you referenced that might be eligible for release that may be interested in transitional living and some low income capacity, that could kind of be a pilot program of sorts to just kind of see how the facility's impacted.
Yes.
So we have a general fund budget amount that's $222 million this year. It's projected with the budget proposal at $231 million next year, right? And between the prison and work release, there's $75 million. Again, that to me is very telling, and that we're asking questions, and the challenges are in a limited budget where we only have resources to be able to fund staffing and a number of things. a significant amount of money goes towards those two operations, and we've got to figure out a way to ensure every bit of efficiencies, particularly when we're moving in the direction of lower populations.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Anything else? I have nothing else. Thank you
All right.
very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. About time.
With that, we will recess until 1 o'clock, where we will resume with our budget hearings, starting with Parks and Rec. We are adjourned.